300 men did not win this battle. They lost slowly, in agony, and on purpose. By the time it ended, the Persians couldn't even recover most of the Spartan dead intact. Spears had snapped down to stubs. Men were fighting with broken sword blades, then with their bare hands, then with their teeth. This is the real story of Thermopylae, not the slow-motion, oiled ABS version from the movies. The one that actually happened is worse and stranger and far more interesting. In 480 BCE, Xerxes, king of Persia, marched south into Greece at the head of what ancient writers called the largest army ever assembled. Herodotus claims over 2.5 million fighting men. Modern historians think that number is wildly inflated by ancient standards of exaggeration. A realistic estimate is somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 troops, supported by a massive fleet. Even at the low end, it was almost certainly the biggest invasion force Greece had ever seen. This wasn't a punitive raid. 10 years earlier, Xerxes' father Darius had been humiliated at the Battle of Marathon. Xerxes came back to finish the job, to burn Athens, crush the mainland city-states, and fold Greece into the Persian Empire for good. A small coalition of Greek city-states, Sparta, Athens, and a handful of others, who spent most of their history of fighting each other, had to find a way to stop an army that outnumbered them by a staggering margin. The Greeks couldn't win a battle in open country, so they didn't pick one. They picked a choke point. Thermopylae means hot gates, named for nearby sulfur springs. In 480 BCE, the pass was a narrow strip of land squeezed between sheer cliffs and the sea, in places barely wide enough for a single wagon. A modern, much wider coastline now sits where the sea used to crash against rock. But at the time, it was a natural bottleneck. Here, Xerxes' numerical advantage meant almost nothing. He couldn't outflank the Greeks with cavalry. He couldn't overwhelm them with sheer mass. He could only feed men into a meat grinder a few dozen at a time. That was the entire plan. Trade geography for time. Here's the first myth to kill. This was never a battle of 300 against the Persian Empire. The Greek force that initially held the pass numbered somewhere around 7,000 men. Spartans, yes, but also Thespians, Thebans, Corinthians, Arcadians, and others. King Leonidas of Sparta commanded the coalition, but his personal royal guard, the famous 300, was only a fraction of the total defense. Even the 300 figure is misleading in another way. Spartan hoplites didn't fight alone. Each was typically accompanied by helots, enslaved laborers from the conquered region of Messenia, forced to serve as attendants and light infantry. Some modern estimates suggest there may have been roughly as many helots present as Spartan citizens. Their presence and fate are barely mentioned in ancient sources, a brutal footnote within a brutal story. The Greeks weren't beaten by Persian numbers. They were beaten by geography, the very advantage that had protected them. A local Greek named Ephialtes, seeking reward, told Xerxes about a narrow mountain track called the Anapia Path that wound around the high ground and came out behind the Greek position. A force of Phocian Greeks had been posted there to guard it. But they were caught off guard and quickly pushed aside in the dark. By dawn, the Persians weren't just in front of Leonidas's men. They were behind them too. When scouts confirmed the Greeks had been outflanked, Leonidas made a decision that turned a tactical defeat into one of history's most enduring stories. He ordered most of the coalition army to withdraw and survive to fight another day. He, his 300 Spartans, and roughly 700 Thespian volunteers chose to stay, along with several hundred Thespians, whose presence is more disputed in the sources. Their job now wasn't to win. It was to buy a few more hours. What followed wasn't a glorious duel. It was annihilation. Surrounded on all sides, the Greeks were pushed back from the wall they built across the pass to a small hillock. According to Herodotus, when their spears broke and their swords were lost or shattered, the surviving Spartans fought on with their bare hands and even their teeth until they were finally overwhelmed by missile fire. Persian archers simply ended it from a distance once close combat became impossible to sustain. Leonidas died partway through the final fighting. His body became the focus of a vicious struggle as Greeks and Persians fought over it, a moment ancient sources treat as significant enough to describe in detail. Afterward, Xerxes reportedly had Leonidas's corpse decapitated and his head displayed on a stake. An unusually severe act of disrespect even by the standards of ancient warfare, suggesting just how personally Xerxes took the humiliation of the previous 2 days. Here's the part the legend usually skips. Thermopylae was a Persian victory. The pass fell, the road to Athens lay open, and Athens was evacuated and burned within weeks. But the delay mattered enormously. It gave the Greek city-states time to organize a combined defense, and it gave the Athenian navy time to prepare for a decisive engagement at Salamis, where the Greek fleet destroyed Xerxes' navy in the narrow straits, the naval mirror of what had happened at Thermopylae on land. A year later, the remaining Persian land forces were crushed at the Battle of Plataea. Xerxes' invasion, the largest Greece had ever faced, ultimately failed. Thermopylae didn't stop Persia. It bought the time that let Greece stop Persia. The Spartans of pop culture wear capes, fight half-naked, and die one at a time in slow motion. The real Spartans fought in heavy bronze armor in 100-degree heat, packed shoulder to shoulder, often unable to see past the man next to them. There was no time for individual heroics. Survival depended entirely on the man beside you holding his shield steady. And Spartan society itself, often romanticized as pure discipline and honor, was built on the brutal subjugation of the Hellenic population, people who had no say in the war being fought, yet whose labor sustained the very system that sent 300 citizens to die in a mountain pass. Thermopylae endures not because it was glorious, but because a small force chose a slow, agonizing death to buy time for people who weren't even on that hillside. That's a harder story to tell than 300 heroes versus 1 million enemies. But it's the true one. The pass looks different today. The coastline has shifted, and a quiet monument now stands where thousands once died fighting over a few feet of rock. If you want to understand how a battle that ended in total defeat became one of history's most retold stories of resistance, that's the next video. If this kind of deep dive history is what you're here for, subscribe and let me know in the comments which ancient battle you want broken down next.